for me, the Philosophy Museum is just this incredibly cool project. I'm in the world of public philosophy. I come across a lot of different public engagement projects. But when I first heard about this museum, maybe 4 years ago, it just struck me as just completely new. And I think if I try to articulate like where that sense came from, like why I actually think this is so exciting, I think a couple of things come to mind. One is that a museum is made up of artifacts. It's made up of physical objects that you interact with, and that you're sort of the process of exploration, the process of discovery in a museum is a matter of interacting with those objects. And that's just not how people do philosophy very much. Philosophy is often this very disembodied thing. You sit at your laptop and you stare at some document, or, maybe you have a conversation with someone at the bar or something like that. But in any case, you don't have a sort of an object in your environment that can sort of conduce to philosophical thinking or interaction, or that can be a sort of scaffold for philosophical thinking and interaction. So I think one thing that makes the museum stand out, and that makes it genuinely new as a type of public philosophy, is that it revolves around these sorts of objects, these objects that create possibilities for or aids to philosophical reflection and interaction. I just think that's really, really cool. I think another thing that I think is potentially really powerful about the museum is that I'm really interested in ways that you can get people to see philosophy as sort of part of the broader culture, that you can get people to see philosophy as something you could be passionate about, the same way that you could be passionate about football or music or movies. That it's just sort of it's a thing that people do that is a source of connection and appreciation, and that and of course we think of museums as sort of monuments to aspects of culture in this way. They're monuments to these things that people do that are sources of appreciation and connection and community and so on. And so this, the one of the things that seems so cool to me about the museum is that it seems sort of like a kind of direct and concrete intervention in this big unmanageable problem of like, how do you get people to see philosophy as part of the culture? As the president of the Public Philosophy Network, I'm always interested in taking cool public philosophy resources and ideas that have been developed in particular parts of the world and spreading the good news and turning them into resources that can be shared and replicated and elaborated by different communities in different places. So the Museum of Philosophy in Milan is just this extremely, innovative and new form of public philosophy. But I would love to live in a world where there were philosophy museums all over the place. I would love to live in a world where a philosophy museum was as ordinary as a science education museum or an art museum or a museum of natural history. And so one of the things that I'd like to do in the coming years as the Museum of Philosophy in Milan is more established is, create traveling exhibitions. So take particular experiences or particular rooms or particular artifacts in the museum and replicate them elsewhere. I'd like to create resources for people who are interested in doing these similar sorts of projects to network with one another, to share ideas more informally or casually. And Yeah, I think those, from the point of view of the Public Philosophy Network, those are some of the things that I'm most excited about in the future, is sort of taking the show on the road and figuring out ways of replicating and elaborating the ideas that have been developed in the Museum of Philosophy in Milan elsewhere. The I hope that the sort of that's sort of greedy of me, that's sort of selfish of me. That is to say, I'm talking mostly about sort of taking ideas from Milan and exporting them to the rest of the world. But hopefully, the direction of influence can go in the other way too. That if you have enough opportunities to talk with like-minded public philosophers around the world, uh, who maybe haven't started their own philosophy museums, but have perhaps their own philosophy games or philosophy artifacts of some sort, that you can take their ideas and you can take their experiences and put them to good use.